If you grew up in the 1970s, your brain was shaped in a way that modern childhood can no longer produce. Psychology explains why many people from that era think differently, tolerate more, and remain unusually grounded today. Here's what made that era psychologically unique. If you were a child in that era, your brain formed during a rare moment in human history, a time of deep freedom paired with real responsibility. And that combination shaped you in ways modern childhood simply cannot replicate. That's why many people from the 70s watch today's world with a calm, almost amused awareness. Not arrogance, not judgment, just understanding. Because you experienced something that no longer exists, a childhood so open, so unstructured, that decades later people still say, "We had no idea how good it was. You drank from garden hoses. You disappeared for hours. You were unsupervised, and somehow it worked." So what made the 70s different? And more importantly, what did it wire into your brain that still shows up today? The first trait psychologists point to is self-directed problem solving. Every 70s kid remembers some version of the same warning, "Go find something to do." Because if you didn't, chores appeared instantly. You learned early that boredom wasn't a problem someone else would fix for you. It was your responsibility. Research on unstructured childhood shows that kids who had to create their own entertainment developed stronger executive function, creativity, and initiative. You weren't scheduled. You weren't managed. You built your day from nothing. You read endlessly. You rode bikes for miles. You vanished into woods and empty lots and made meaning out of thin air. Your brain learned how to generate purpose without external stimulation, something many people never learn at all. That explains the creativity. But it doesn't explain your calm under pressure. That comes from the second trait, adaptive risk calibration. You climbed trees that were too tall. You rode bikes without helmets. You experimented, failed, got hurt, healed, and tried again. Every scraped knee and close call taught your nervous system something critical: how to tell real danger from manageable risk. Developmental psychology shows that children exposed to physical risk in play grow into adults with lower baseline anxiety and better threat assessment. You didn't learn fear from warnings or screens. You learned it through experience. That's why when chaos hits, you don't freeze. You assess and act. Then there's a trait that many younger generations struggle with deeply: comfort with solitude. You spent long stretches alone, listening to music, lying in the grass, wandering without distraction, not because you were lonely, but because nothing was constantly demanding your attention. Studies on pre-digital childhood show that people who grew up without non-stop stimulation experience far less anxiety when alone with their thoughts. Modern research even shows that many people today would rather endure discomfort than sit quietly with themselves. You find that almost unbelievable, because you learned early that boredom isn't an emergency. Silence isn't a threat. The fourth trait is analog patience. You waited for shows, for photos to develop, for phone calls that might never come. Delayed gratification wasn't a lesson, it was daily life. And research consistently links this kind of patience to stronger impulse control, healthier relationships, and long-term success. That's why instant rewards don't satisfy you the same way. Your nervous system was trained to wait and to trust that waiting was worth it. And finally, the trait that ties everything together: unsupervised autonomy. You left the house with one rule: be home before dark. No tracking, no constant check-ins. You navigated the world, judged situations, made mistakes, and lived with the outcomes. Psychologists have found that this kind of freedom builds internal motivation, confidence, and decision-making ability. Your parents weren't hovering friends. They were authority figures who trusted you to grow into competence. And you did. So if you ever feel out of place in today's world, remember this: you're not outdated. You're carrying skills that are becoming rare. What looks like emotional distance is independence. What looks like silence is depth. What looks like patience is discipline. You didn't survive your childhood despite the freedom. You were strengthened by it. For a brief moment in history, kids were both wild and capable, and you lived it. If you grew up in the 70s and feel this in your bones, leave a comment. And if you appreciate psychology-based content that explains why you are the way you are, subscribe, because this is just the beginning.